In exactly 10 days' time, I'm racing the Unbound 200 in Kansas in America. As it stands, I currently have no bike, but in a box just over there is a frame that I need to build up into a bike. I sent one email to one company as soon as I found out that I was doing this event, and they were incredibly supportive and helpful in turning around and delivering a frame in such a short time frame, because all of this has happened very quickly. I'm going to be riding for Muc-Off, which is who I'm working for, and the bike is absolutely stunning. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I actually test rode one of these in September last year, and I was instantly impressed by how it felt, how it rode. I'd never ridden a bike made of this frame material before, and that probably tells you something. Most of us have ridden a steel bike, an aluminium bike, a carbon bike, but I think something a little bit more rare is a titanium bike. Let's go and have a look. It's the Reilly Reflex gravel bike, and it is absolutely stunning. So this bike actually arrived yesterday, and I took it out of the box and weighed it with just the seat post clamp and the frame. There are a few things that I didn't know about titanium. Number one, actually, it's a little bit heavier than it feels to ride. It's incredibly responsive to ride. This is the first thing that I noticed when I test rode it in September. The bike just feels alive. It's really smooth, very direct handling. It feels more like a lightweight carbon frame than it does like a steel frame for the equivalent weight. Someone might disagree. That was my personal experience. I want something that's going to be incredibly durable so that when I do the event, I can just focus on riding and I don't need to worry about nursing a bike around. These bikes are built for 55mm tyre clearance, meaning they'll be able to run really good cross-country tyres. It's not a frame material that I have to worry about travelling with. I'm going to build it up with a mixture of components that I borrowed from other bikes, components that I would choose out of preference, and it's going to be a mixture of mechanical Durex and Shimano Dura-Ace. The first thing to do is to cover it in a layer of Muc-Off ceramic protection, because I want the bike to look immaculate when I cross the finish line as well as at the start line. So let's put it in the bike rack and start preparing it for the day ahead. We have had immaculate sunshine for about the last 6 to 8 weeks, and the very day that I get to build the bike it started to rain, which is not ideal, but there we go. It's the way it is. I don't have much undercover shelter out here. Could go inside, but I think it just looks better being outside. The most important thing is going to be to dry the frame, clean the frame, prepare the frame, and then start building it up with all the components that we find lying around. Step number one, remove any residue on the frame with a surface preparation. This will mean that when we come to drying it and putting on the ceramic protection, it will just stick really nicely to the material that's underneath and not onto any oil that could then be washed off at some point. It's all about the preparation. Which, if I'm honest, is normally not my strong point, but I'm learning. The Reilly Reflex is made from 3AL-2.5V ultra butted titanium. And I know that it also uses investment cast moulding of some sort. We're going to find out more about that. That's the design around the headset and around the top of the seat tube. And it gives them these sleek lines that looks like it's not welded. Also, I discovered that if you scratch a titanium frame, on the Reilly website, they recommend the exact grit of sandpaper and how exactly you should polish it with sandpaper, wet and dry sandpaper, to restore that surface so that it looks brand new again. I thought that was quite cool. As all of my grubby fingerprints removed, we can now move on to the next step. Hopefully, as you can see, just a few little drops seems to go a very long way, in which case that bottle would last forever. Right, time to put in the fork, and it's always best to bed the bearings in with a little bit of grease. For their protection of the frame, and the real skill in doing this is putting just enough in that you don't get it all over your fingers. I'm going to start at the top bearing, and then I can seat the top bearing in, and then I have less in my hands. When popping your bottom bracket in, it's always good to remember that this is opposite thread. So it's a left-hand thread on the drive side. And then just with all touching metal surfaces, a tiny bit of grease. I mentioned I'm going to be borrowing parts from other bikes, other places, other people. These are the old wheels that I've been using for a few years. They're dusty because we went for a mega gravel ride on Sunday. It couldn't have been better. Perfect conditions, relatively quiet trails, and it's not quite completely overgrown. These are set up currently with 35mm tyres. I referenced before, probably going to run 50 to 55mm. These are also set up with the Muc-Off big bore valves, which just make it so much easier to deal with things when you're out on a ride, or if you want to top up sealant. It's a maintenance essential. You might not use it on a race bike, but you'd absolutely use it on a training bike just because it makes things easier with tubeless tyres. I'm going to put these in the bike now so that the bike looks like it's taking the form of a bike. Dust the wheels off ever so slightly, but I just think it's nice when you're building a bike that it looks like a bike from the start rather than just an empty frame. A personal thing, makes no difference. If anything, probably makes it a little bit harder, less accessible. You might want to consider taking off the rotors because you don't want to get them oily when you're bleeding brakes and different things, but when we get to that stage we might even just remove the wheels again. But for now, they're going in. And of course that means more grease on the through axles. So a really cool feature on the forks is they have a flip chip which helps you to adjust the rake from 47 to 52mm. Could be rake or trail, probably should check that and put it in text on the screen. A longer setup will make it more stable, so if there are fast descents and fast sections, it will be more confidence inspiring. If you're riding something more like a cross race, maybe, you would want it to be a little bit more agile, and then you might shorten the length of the wheelbase, just make the handling that little bit faster. On the whole, I prefer the bike setup in a long setting. I know this from previous bikes. The Canyon Aero used to have the same system as well. Because of borrowing bits from different bikes, it's not always possible to get everything to fit. I need to order a clamp for the seat tube so that my front derailleur can fit. I sort of expected that to happen. We'll carry on anyway. We can just set it up without a front derailleur for a moment. We'll get the rear derailleur on. I've gone for mechanical because if I fly and the bike is thrown around, the levers just move, they don't snap. But also, if something happens in the event, you can almost always bodge a mechanical setup quite easily. With electric, it is that little bit more challenging. Also, if something happens and I break a rear mech, it's going to be about £50 and not nearer £500. I love Di2 and I would absolutely choose it, but there's only so much money in the world, right? And you can't spend it all on bike parts all the time. So yeah, my real motivation for the build is partly cost and partly reliability and serviceability. I don't think Di2 is inherently unreliable, but I do think if there's a problem, I'm not an electrician, I'm not a computer wizard, it would just be easier to have mechanical group set. It's very rare there would be a problem, but may as well be prepared, right? Saddle up next. I used this on my bike in the winter and I quite liked it. It's not the lightest, but it is pretty comfortable. And if you're going to ride 200 miles, comfort is going to be important. It's also in nice shape for riding off-road. You can actually move around and move your weight around, which is quite important as well. That's sort of in there, and it kind of matches the correct angle. We'll put it on the floor later and we'll have a good look. Time for some bars. That'll also help keep the wheel in place. Right. And then that assembly on there. So this stem actually has access for internal cable routing, which fortunately, so does the bike. So it's a 110mm stem. A 110 stem, which came off my Lapierre Exilius, and it also has 38cm bars. I had some lighter bars, but they were 4cm wider. 4cm is probably worth up towards 50 watts, depending on which online calculator you want to read and believe. So we've gone for narrow, not wide. A quick play with the saddle height. We're looking for 735mm from the centre of the bottom bracket to the centre of the saddle. Nice, first time, every time. internal cable routing. I still maintain whoever invented it never actually used it, but we're getting there. It's slow. Probably could have been made easier if I'd first bought brand new hydraulic hoses that are the correct length. So I'm gonna have to go out and get those now. Having successfully fitted both hoses, I then discovered I'm about that much too short. It's just the way it is. My fault for not checking first. So the hoses actually have this neat little guide around the bottom bracket shell, meaning they'll never touch the spindle. The spindle's covered by a sleeve anyway, but just to ensure they go the right direction, we're putting them into these little guides. Right, we have a rear gear cable in, which is good. Feels like some progress is being made. 3 out of 4 hoses and cables done, and my patience firmly tested, but it will look good when it's done. I've given up on the idea of internally routing the bar and stem because I just don't have that much time. You can tell how long it's taking by how much the sun's moving. Anyway, we're on to the brakes now, although until I go and get a hose for the rear, I can only do the front, but at least then I can actually ride it once it has a chain. So the noodle is in, the olive is in. Just need to screw them all up and clamp them, and then bleed the brakes. I do always use the instructions because I don't want to make any mistakes. It's not something I do very regularly, and it's easy to forget the steps, so it's good to have a little refresh. So as I work my way through the steps, you can watch what I'm doing. Right. I'm going to leave that attached to that, and that can live over there. That way, hopefully, I might not lose it. And then, funnel. Simply screws onto there. And the plunger. Don't think we need the plunger yet, but it's there. Fill the syringe. Simply pump in the oil until no more bubbles. I'm just going to wait there and give it a good tap as well. You can look at the colour of the fluid up here. Now, time to make sure that I've gotten rid of any leftovers. So good liberal spray of that. Because I don't want to ruin my new pads. Little bit of adjustment needed, but that's a good sign. Just need to clean the disc as well. Time to put the chain on, and then it's close enough to being testable, which is quite exciting. Obviously there's quite a lot to go yet. A few of my little issues to resolve, but it's coming together. I'm quite happy now. Quite a roller coaster with the internal cable routing and my handlebars. I'm going to be honest, it was entirely the fault of my bars. So I drilled my own bars and I was hoping to route all the cables through there. Probably didn't drill a big enough hole. Equally, I didn't really dare drill a bigger hole. And it's probably worked out for the best that it's not gonna be the setup that I use. It'll be a much more maintainable system this way. Let's get this on. And then once this is on, it needs to be ridden for about 100 miles. Degreased, then ridden, then re-lubed. And that's the way to make your chain faster. Re-lubed with Muc-Off ludicrous lube, because applying layer after layer builds a faster chain system, faster than wax. And also, I don't have the time to be messing around with a wax chain at the moment. Day 2, I now have a brake hose and tyres, so a massive, massive thank you to James Hadfield for saving the day, because without this, there is absolutely no way I'd be able to finish the bike build. First thing we're going to do is put the mountain bike tyres, Vittoria Mezcal, on these rims and set them up tubeless, using the massive big bore valves, which makes it a lot easier. Right, that's how easy it should always be. Now time to thoroughly shake the sealant. Basically, the more you shake it, the better it works. And then the real beauty of the big bore valve is because it's coreless, you simply just squeeze it in. One tyre set up tubeless. So one of the main reasons I was really keen on this bike is because of the large tyre clearance, up to 55mm, which is a little bit wider than a 2.1 if you go back to mountain bike standards. So this is a Vittoria Mezcal 2.1 and it fits absolutely perfectly. Even if it was to be really muddy, it's still got loads of clearance, and it's a good tyre that I've used on my cross-country bike before. Really predictable because I've used it before, so it's not always about the fastest, it's about predictability as much as anything, knowing exactly what you're going to get, something that's reliable. Close enough to ride. We do still have the rear brakes pop on, but it's starting to take shape and look like what it's going to look like at the event. So actually with the 2.1 tyres, there's quite a bit of clearance still, so if it was to be muddy, I don't think it'd be a massive problem. I'm not sure I'd want to squeeze in anything bigger, but I think they suit the bike, they suit the size of the frame, they suit the terrain I'm going to be riding on. And I really, genuinely can't wait to ride it now. Right, I'm not sure that's quite the first test ride, but it feels good. The first ride within the first few minutes is a massive, massive success. I said earlier in the video that it feels a lot lighter than the actual physical weight of the bike, and just wow. So the total build weighs 9.3 kilos. You could definitely save a lot of weight with different bars, different saddle, stem, group set, different tyres, but weight isn't everything. I think we are often told to focus on weight, and bike weights are listed, but it's the ride characteristics that really matter, and it just feels so much fun to ride. Like, it's got this magic carpet feel because of the high volume tyres. Silky smooth, the frame, you don't get that buzz that you often get from stiffer bikes, but you know, stiff as in vertically stiff. The lateral stiffness which is what you really want from a bike, that's all there. It accelerates, it's got this like really nice springiness. There'll be a full video about the ride review coming. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy riding it, and I'll let you know what I think of it in a couple of weeks' time. It's been a long video. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I'd love to know your thoughts on the build. What do you reckon? What would you have done differently? And how do you think it's going to be suited to Unbound in 7 days' time? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time.